Okay. I'm gonna go and ring the one, the only LumiRue. They are a paganist, a heathen, and a lovely all-round person. So let's get all this going. Thanks for the follow, by the way, Paganism. Forever needed. Give me 2 seconds. I think it might be okay. Okay, just ringing now.
Hello.
Hello. Do I have a camera for you?
Okay. So this is, I asked if you would need me to be on cam. Oh shoot.
Well, that's fine. I can. Because Go on.
I think I misinterpreted what you said, so I do apologize for that.
Oh, I thought you meant you wanted to download, like, send the video over to me after we had completed the whole thing. That's what I thought you meant.
No.
Not. Right. Okay. Yeah. We. Okay. That's fine. I can do a screen crop of your stream.
Alrighty.
Okay.
And I'll just shoot my community over to you if they want to check out your video.
Thank you.
I would have gone and gotten an extra camera. I wasn't sure, and I was moving very quickly today, so I was like, oh, okay, he doesn't want that.
I know, I didn't really want to push you too hard, you know? It's just the camera. Right, we can work our way around that. 1 second. Hey, chat, by the way. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, welcome in. Would you introduce yourself? I got to look into a little bit of your content, and I saw you going on about something regarding systemic racism.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting chat. What do you do?
I am, I guess, variety streamer is the best way to put it, but then, like, I don't do too much gaming, to be honest. I started out, because I'm a care worker, I started out trying to educate people about my education through work, which was started out with tracheostomy care and stuff, but I won't go into details too much because it's too gruesome sometimes. And 1 second, I'm really trying hard to get this screen capture to work. 1 second. There we go. There's your there's your lovely face. Let's get that props properly. Right. Yeah. So I also I realized that wasn't getting much attention, which is really strange to me considering COVID and everything like that. So I just decided to start a podcast where basically I just try and get streamers to talk about their other talents and their other expertise and interests, because I feel like there's enough blood sports on this thing. Let's get some nice stuff going.
I feel that. I really like that. I like that goal. That's one of the things I feel like a lot of people, I think there is a lot of critiquing and growing to be done, but I'd also like to see people connecting a little bit and trying to form those bonds where those critiques can be a source of growth rather than tearing people down and causing a lot of inner community difficulty. So of course there are going to be people that have just absolutely atrocious ideas that you can't be gentle with. But I think I would like to see more people connecting in more lighthearted ways as well. I think that'd be nice.
I actually, the other day, I ended up hosting something called the Republican Nation, which is actually a Discord server designed for multiple different political personalities. Thanks. I'm streaming now. Sorry. And basically, they just raided me and let me do the whole thing, do the whole call and everything. And they have one every day, and it was really interesting because they are really calm. They're not trying to be abusive in any way. If you end up as a, dirtbag leftist on their call, they'll just kick you out because they just don't want to. They don't want to deal with that rubbish. They are against the hard right as well. So it's difficult to bring up some of the talking points you hear on Twitch because they are not going to work on those people. Because those particular Republicans are genuinely trying to be nice people. They're trying to help people. They're just coming at it from a destructive...
Who is it?
There was... what's his name? Well, there was also an ex-communist in there, but he's still a socialist. So it's interesting, like, diverse opinions, which is really good. And I got some pushback because of my structural racism points, but I don't know enough to really make a proper, detailed argument about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So why don't we start the podcast, eh?
I'm down.
Full interview, right? So, because obviously I'm going to be clipping parts of this so that it makes a proper podcast. So I'm going to start with the intro. Hey everyone, I'm MPCA at HCA, and this is the Teacher Layman podcast. Right now, you're listening to this because I'm not that informed about this particular bit of information. So why don't we let one of the experts of the Twitch tell us exactly what it's about. So what is paganism?
That is a really good question. Paganism is a spirituality. It's an umbrella term for a very wide amount of spirituality. Is typically polytheistic, though I personally, as a pagan, don't believe in any specific gods or goddesses or even deities in general. Okay. Pagan, the term pagan actually originated much earlier, as early Christians used it to use the term to describe basically polytheistic individuals or people who worshipped many gods and goddesses in a derogatory way. So it was kind of interchangeable with heathen, is another term that you could that was used at the time. However, recently, or more modernly, we have people who are bringing the term back. And it has a variety of earth-based religions that go under it. So you get neo-paganism and just a variety of different pagans. There are some who are reviving traditions and really trying their best to revive those earlier religion traditions. Whereas there are also people who are more like me, that are more eclectic, that are kind of all over the place. Wicca is associated with that. I used to consider myself a Wiccan, and I just recently came back to being loosely pagan because to me, that is the place I get the most inclusive environment while still finding a lot of meaning. And it's very earth-based. That's what I like about it, is it's inclusive and it's incredibly earth-based. Your holidays are all based around the solstices and the equinoxes and the in-between periods of that. So it's really celebrating the cycle of the seasons and the whatnot. And I love that connection.
Yeah, I like the sound of that because it doesn't sound very forced. There's no like demanding structure of it. It like, yeah. In the sense that if you've got like an institutional religion, then you've got a kind of set of edicts that you've got to follow. Whereas from what I do understand, what little I do understand, is it's more like you can pick and choose and no one really bats an eyelid. Is that right?
Yeah, that's another one of the reasons I really like it is I grew up in a very conservatively Christian area, and it seems like you did default to the leaders of your church or default to your interpretation of the Bible, and there was a lot of disagreement within that. but still it seems like you follow your particular institution and it has a very large impact. Whereas me, I practiced as what was called a solitary Wiccan for the most of my time, but it is very, when I got to be around other Wiccans, other pagans, well, I didn't necessarily vibe with them. I did recognize that there was a wide variety of people there, and I didn't notice the sense of superiority or you have to follow someone in particular or anything like that. And I think that's really nice.
Yeah, me too. That's kind of something that I wanted to ask you about, actually, just diverting from my usual line of question. What makes it inclusive? What makes you feel included?
So, the first thing that drew me to Wicca was actually the perspective on sexuality and sex specifically. So I don't know if you're
carry on.
keeping your okay, but growing up in a more conservative Christian area, especially as someone with sexual trauma, it was hard to understand how I would be seen if people understood what I had gone through. Because if you lose your virginity, you are degraded, right? You've lost something beautiful based on that culture that I was growing up in. And I saw a lot of that. And it felt very constricting. It felt confusing to me. And I really had this negative view of sex and sexuality. But I started learning about Wicca, and one of the books I was reading, I think it was one of Scott Cunningham's books. He was talking about sexuality in terms of Wicca and how that's actually a really beautiful thing. Sexuality is spiritual, and sexuality can look, the way you engage in sex can look a variety of different ways, but it's about the meaning to you, and it's about it being basically healthy interaction and a healthy part of your whole being. And I really loved that. And then the other thing, some people will argue that some of the ideas in these pagan religions are very gender essentialist or focus on the gender binary a lot. And some people will say, well, you know, at least there's a goddess. That's a big pull for some people, is that there are goddesses and the goddess is celebrated as well as a god. And it's not very male centered. But some people have felt a little bit like, well, it's very based in the gender binary. But for me, and how I understood it was, you worked with both of those binaries, and there was a mixture of that too. So there could be an androgyny there as well. And I really was pulled into that concept of it being inherently more supportive. And then also being around, even if I didn't necessarily vibe with the other pagans I have been around, they were all very, very either queer or queer friendly. Oh. And I loved that.
I'm sure you did. It would make things a lot easier to do, to understand and trying to incorporate it within yourself. It must be a lot easier than having to try and incorporate Christianity.
Which was hostile.
Yes,
in a lot of ways.
Okay, so let's move on to a little bit more of a planned question, I suppose. Can you summarize paganism in 10 words or less?
Inclusive, earth-based spirituality.
Okay. And if someone wanted to learn, like, how to start with paganism, how would they go about doing that?
I would recommend books. I haven't got to dive back into that aspect of things, but I think anything, look into a few different books. The last I knew, Scott Cunningham was pretty on point. And then you can also find a wide variety. If reading is difficult for you, and I feel like a lot of people, especially getting out of school, even if you were into reading, it can be harder for people once they lose that practice. It becomes more difficult. There are also a lot of podcasts. Just Google Wicca, or I look up on Spotify, and I follow a few podcasts on Spotify and listen to them. And those are some avenues, just finding things online, looking at podcasts and books if you're interested in that.
Okay, well, thanks for that. So paganism and Wicca, you seem to be using that like interchangeably. Is that true, or is there some kind of differences? Or
paganism is an umbrella term that goes over a wide variety of religions. I tend to lean towards more Wicca. Wicca is what I'm most familiar with, though I don't necessarily consider myself Wiccan.
Okay, thanks for that. So let's go to your background with it. Like, so when did you really start getting into it? Was it sort of early teens or any earlier? I don't know.
I'd say mid-late teens in high school. I found Wicca around high school, and again, I just started reading books and really fell in love with some of the ideas in it. I think there was a real start to my feminism before I even knew what feminism was in Wicca. So experiencing the idea that there could be a goddess. I didn't believe in God, and I don't believe in God or goddesses or deities, but that idea, that concept was really powerful to me. And I think it was just the ideas around being able to appreciate masculinity, being able to appreciate femininity as well as equals, as complements, was really powerful to me, as compared to the culture I felt kind of surrounded by that didn't feel feminist friendly, didn't feel those things. So it was like my pre-knowing about feminism.
Interesting. Reminds me of like the yin and yang kind of idea, but with gender as the framing, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it seems like it. It seems very reminds me of kind of the way that Russell Brand talks sometimes. I don't know why. You don't know Russell Brand? Oh, okay. He is a outspoken, very, very big critic of capitalism, and but he came from like a drug addicted situation when he was younger, and he was very famous for it and being very let's say flamboyant with the ladies, and yeah, he came out of that. He's got a nice marriage and lovely kid and everything, and he's really centered himself, and the way he talks, it is very
he was
balanced.
Married to Katy Perry once.
Yeah, married to Katy Perry. So
I like their lanyard, by the way.
So let's get back to paganism, by the way. So why is paganism important to you then? Is it the balance that you really seek from it, or is there other particular details that you could pull out?
Honestly, the first reason was, again, that pre-feminism feminism and learning how to accept myself kind of as not just a trauma survivor, but trying to accept myself in terms of gender. So one of the things that was really difficult for me growing up was understanding myself from the perspective of gender. And I thought maybe was I a trans man once I learned about transness existing, but I didn't learn about non-binary people. And so the idea that I could work with masculine and feminine energies, embody masculine and or feminine energies, was really empowering to me. I felt like that came very naturally to me. And it makes a little more sense now as a non-binary person, right? I'm like, oh, well, that clicked into place really easily for a reason.
Yeah.
But I came back to it. I kind of distanced myself because I don't believe in anything supernatural, and a lot of people who believe in ghosts or a variety of other supernatural things, right? Gods, goddesses, whether you consider them supernatural or not, things like that. I didn't feel comfortable with that. That was very jarring to me. But I came back because I started deciding I really want to celebrate the holidays. I love holidays, but I wanted to find meaningful meaning behind the holidays, just like some meaning. And it was like we were going through, Easter was incoming, and I knew I had missed Ostara. And so I started looking into Ostara is a similar equivalent to Easter, a little bit earlier though. And actually a lot of the Easter sort of traditions or ties to Easter come from Ostara. Ostara is one of the multiple more fertility related sabbats and sabbats. So its symbols were eggs and bunnies, because bunnies fuck a lot.
Yeah,
I guess I should say reproduce a lot. And so those things got kind of swept up and taken into Easter. And you see this with a lot of pagan traditions, because when I was looking at Easter, it felt kind of weird. I was like, okay, it's about Jesus's resurrection, but I don't really follow that. And then why do we have an Easter bunny that lays eggs? Like, what? Like, where is the meaning in here for me?
Where's the connection between like Jesus and eggs?
Exactly. Like, Jesus, did you create the bunny that pops out the eggs? And if so, why? I don't understand how this connects. Like,
I prefer the chocolate factory, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory golden egg situation. That's like, get the bad eggs then as well.
Fair. Yeah, so it was just meaning in holidays. They connected to, the cycles of the earth. And I don't know if you've ever, are you in a place that has the holidays, or not the holidays, excuse me, the different seasons? Do you have your 4 different seasons?
We get 4 different seasons in 2 days. So that's why the British people are renowned for moaning about the weather as part of their general chat. If you bump into someone you haven't seen for years, the first thing you chat about is the weather, and it's kind of a bit pointless, really. But so yeah, why did you want to know that the 4 seasons?
I was just gonna mention, I noticed during winter, for me at least personally, I'm less energetic. Right?
Yeah.
I've got to put on all these layers to go outside, and that just sounds god awful to me. And during the summer, in the spring, I feel like I'm blooming. I feel very energetic. The sun brings me a lot of energy, and I feel like a lot more just energized. And I think paganism, or at least Wicca, really celebrates those cycles and the little meanings you see in those cycles, like when autumn is coming around and things are dying, and there's just all this beauty around you. It's really celebrating that harvest, celebrating the cycles. And then, yes, things are dying, and you will have this quiet period during the winter. And there's a real beauty in that. There's a stillness in that. And it's allowing yourself to just settle into that, enjoy it a little bit, And then when spring comes around, you can clear out your area, get that spring cleaning done, and really just dive back into growth and all that comes with it. So
that sounds beautiful. Autumn is probably my favorite time of year. And whilst he was saying that, it kind of reminded me of the old cycle of life kind of idea, but it kind of, the way you expressed it there came out of it, like calmness came from it, and kind of comfort, rather than like part of the cycle of life as we know is like, passing away. Perhaps through paganism, it might be a little bit easier for some of us in the modern age to deal with passing of our loved ones. Would you say that might be part of it?
I could see it that way, personally. So I think that I feel really bad for people who are scared of their loved ones going somewhere like hell.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That really worries me. I also, for me, and this, not all pagans believe that when you die, you're dead. And that's a really dark way of putting it. But I think there is a level of, you see that your loved one's memory lives on in you. And you can accept, I can accept that a little bit. And then it also gives me this, it helps me understand the importance of the time I currently have, and that is limited. And no, I don't believe I have a life after this. And that can be very grim for people, but to me, it makes life something to cherish and death something to respect, but also recognize, it's just that cycle of life. And it is kind of calming to me.
Yeah, it's nice to kind of, well, because of my job, I've been, experiencing a lot of death recently. I don't know if, did I mention at the start of my job? I can't remember.
You mentioned, but I would be interested in you diving into that a little bit more and explaining it a little more.
Okay, so I'm a care assistant or care worker, whatever phrase you want to use, at a brain injury and rehab center, which is for anyone above the age of 18 with any kind of brain difficulty. So you could have anyone from a car accident to people with MS and Huntington's, people with, brain aneurysms that have caused dementia, different things like that. So you've got all of those people all in the same place, and then you've got to lock them down for COVID. These people live together in that building. It's not like a typical hospital. It's kind of somewhere that you go to before you go back home, because we're looking to create independence in the people there rather than just sustaining what little they may have left.
You would get along so well with my sister, by the way. She's a physical therapist assistant, and her favorite is neurology.
That's actually where I want to be in the end. Well, more occupational therapy.
Perfect.
And that's one of the things that I had to take time off for, was some mental health issues because it was just like, you're not supposed to see that amount of death in the place that I work, because you're meant to be getting people to independence. And in my head, that's why I chose the job, was because I could then kind of avoid the really dark stuff. And then all of this happened at once. My nan passed at the same time. My good friend of mine, he had a sister pass as well. So it was just like nothing to do with COVID, those two, by the way, but it was still all at once. So it was like, you got to take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
And through the therapy, I sort of realized, boundaries. That's the problem.
Absolutely.
Figuring out where work starts and home life begins. So I had to start saying no to certain things that are outside of work, like I was helping a resident with their charity at one point, so I was dealing with all their social media stuff, and it was just getting a lot. And I had to just say to him, like, look, we've done the bit that you wanted to do to start it off. I'm going to hand the reins over to you now. And he really respected that, and he was like, no, thanks for doing what you did. And it went really well, to be honest. So it's a great job, really, because you really do get to see the human experience, all sides of it, everything. And because I'm in the job that I am, I obviously experience multiple different types of cultures, different types of people. We actually had a trans individual at our place for a while as a care worker as well, which was really fascinating as well, because no one could tell until they told them, which
Oh yeah, I gotcha.
they passed in it quite well. So it just made things a bit easier for them day to day. But as soon as they said anything, that's when some people were a little bit hesitant.
That's sad.
Which is sad, but that person dealt with it so well. Like, they didn't take it in any kind of offense. They were just like, look, it's that time. That's it. The people are going to be weird about it, but they were weird about gay people originally, and now they're not. So maybe in the days to come, weeks to come, we'll be better off.
That's a very hopeful perspective.
Very hopeful.
And I am definitely, I feel like I'm in the same boat. I think trans people, and this goes out to all the trans people in my chat, and anyone who might be listening, they are tough as fuck.
They are.
You're out there living your identities or living as a separate identity because you have to, and yet still out here doing your thing. And I think that's amazing. But I do think there will be a time, and we do see those parallels of how gay people were treated and now how trans people are treated. It's the same thing over and over and over again.
It is.
They gotta have someone to attack. Might as well be us, I guess.
Yeah, as long as it's a minority. But then that's, when what was it? I was talking to my dad about this sort of stuff, and he's quite right wing. And I was trying to explain to him what little I do know about trans people, that I've learned from yourself and through other less savory individuals like Destiny, and
less savory. Less cozy, perhaps.
Yeah, less cozy. Yeah. He's a bit more bitter sometimes. But yeah, so but trying to explain to him, it feels like you're coming from a different language completely, and I can't even explain to him the difference between individual and structural racism or oppression, because he just, as soon as you use the word structural versus individual, he's like, nope, doesn't exist. Like, there is no difference. And because he is from a position where he doesn't see that many different types of people, he just assumes that because he doesn't experience it, it doesn't exist. And I said to him, there's tons of studies about it and all this sort of stuff. He said, yeah, but there is, liberal bias and all that. God.
Oh, yeah. That's always the struggle.
The big struggle. So I think we touched on this question actually quite a little bit already. But I think we could expand on it a little bit, unless you wanted to know anything more about my job.
I just think that's really, really incredible. And I was going to note, you might want to check into a creator named Mo the Bone Lady. I'm sorry about your recent losses and everything you've been going through. I know that is a lot. But Mo the Bone Lady, she is a really incredible creator on the platform. I've actually had her on for an interview, and it was one of my favorite interviews. We talked about death, dying, and mourning. I'll probably have her on again. She has the best energy. She's very wise, very kind. You might enjoy chatting with her.
Yeah.
She's pretty neat.
I actually kind of got chills as you said about the subjects. So I was just like, I desperately want to talk to her already.
She was very cool.
So how do you spell that? Sorry, is it M-O?
M-O and then T-H-E Bone Lady, like you would expect. Like
yeah, okay, lady. There we go. It was just the Mo bit I was checking.
Yeah.
So, are there parts of paganism that helped you in tough times then? We already touched on this, but was there any specific parts that you believe in that really, really did help you in a tough time? Or do you think we've gone over that?
I think we've hit a few points of those, but I could add in that most recently, I think understanding those cycles of nature and appreciating those cycles of nature also remind me that I also need to occasionally rest. I think in our current culture, we have a lot of issue with resting because it feels like many people are pushed to go, go, go. You've got to be productive all the time. And so taking that time to recognize that just like nature, I have cycles, I'm going to bloom at points, and sometimes I need a break and some peace and some restfulness. So that also has been very helpful.
One of the things I had to, I guess, learn from my parents' mistakes is how to sort of say no to the people closest to you sometimes. Or because I don't know about yourself, but do you ever feel like you're kind of a battery that gets sucked out? Like the energy gets drained by being around other people. And like
especially
it doesn't,
if you don't have good boundaries.
Exactly, that's the thing. Exactly.
Absolutely.
So like, even I try to explain it to friends and family and they take it very personally. Even if I preface it with like, you know, this isn't about you, this is about how I experience everyone. So it's nothing to do with you as a person. You could literally sit next to me saying nothing and it would do the same as if we were shouting at each other. Like, and they would never get that. But it works out in the end because, like you said, boundaries. You learn where to put them,